Troy Grisa is a juggler, poi spinner, flow artist, and a friend of the channel based out of Portland, Oregon. We discussed some differences between myself and Troy and the importance of owning your individuality based on goals and practice. Support us on Patreon for $5 a month to help us continue this project. Welcome to the Poidcast and enjoy the episode, my friends. Troy, welcome to the podcast, episode 27. What's up, man? How you doing?
Yo, 27 is my favorite number, dude. Let's go. That's when my life peaked. So that's like target.
Sweet. Perfect. So this has been a long-awaited episode for sure, man. I'm glad that we finally got to work something out and get an episode together. I knew that it was going to happen eventually, but we got you on board. I'm very excited. First of all, I want to kick off the episode as I usually do. Take us all the way back to how and when the flow arts or poi or juggling story, how did it all start for you?
Well, this is the Poidcast, so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the poi story, but I got to start with juggling balls because as a competitive young lad in 6th grade, I got a book called How to Juggle for Dummies from the Scholastic Book Fair, and it came with 3 bean bags. My friend Derek Rich, heard he's a model now. He and I competed to see who could get more catches in one day, and I got to 8 and he got to like 11. And that filled me with a deep rage at the age of 11. And I had to beat the proverbial Derek Rich for the rest of my life. So I continued juggling and various props here and there. And then poi is a different story where my friends did it in college and I made fun of them because they used pink and purple, which ironically now I have pink and purple poi and wear those colors all the time. But I was like, that's feminine or whatever. I kind of made fun of them because I wasn't in touch with my, full self yet. And then I saw him do it with fire, and that's when I really got into it. So
Nice.
Frankly, the LEDs didn't rope me in, the OG flow toys, but the fire poi did. So now I like LED and fire the same, but back before I was really invited into this scene, the LEDs didn't do it for me for whatever reason. I probably was just like jealous, like I had the thought, I could do that. I don't know. It roped me in, and then I got spin balls. I got the little DVD and learned in my college apartment as a sophomore. And then the spin balls, and then the who was that DVD that came with it? It wasn't even, was it Nikki Evers? I can't remember. But of course, over the years, I jammed out on Nikki Evers' tutorials. And sophomore year in college, that would have been 2011, probably the early 2012.
2011 is when you started.
Yeah, so we're pushing a little over 10 years now.
Yeah.
And the journey was just like anyone's. There's nothing remarkable about it. It was just always been into counterculture of skateboarding and snowboarding, but wanted something more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you first started spinning poi, did you immediately start looking up poi videos on YouTube? How did you learn more about it? You said you had gotten a DVD at that point, but were you looking at anybody or watching anybody on YouTube?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I skipped a key scene, which was I used to spin little micro lights. Which is just like a handheld LED where you just kind of do stuff like that. And I was getting bored of that, probably at a subconscious level. And I was at a rave. I was at a World Beats rave. It's a really good genre. Somebody's pod poi launched across the room and wrapped around my leg. And I had seen pod poi before, but I'd never held one. And I held it up. And this thing's just, dangling in front of me, kind of like hanging there. And I'm like, I finally held the power in my hand. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And this Wook gentleman comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, that's mine. And I handed it back to him, and he just like did a corkscrew and wiggled away from me and just made his way back into the crowd and kept jamming. Like, I was like, I wish I could hold on to that thing. It looks so fun. He was just smiling, even though he had just like hit me in the leg. He was still so confident and proud. So I don't know who that Wook is, but I would love to credit him for hitting me.
Okay.
It was like the Batman thing, that the batarang or whatever that wraps around your leg and makes you fall. It was just like the flow version of that.
Right. Nice. So I had gotten into it in roughly 2011. Now, when did you get into 3-poi? We can just dive right into when that journey started for you, because this is going to be a huge point of conversation for us. So when did you first pick up a third?
So that would have been after I moved to Florida, after spinning poi for not that long, probably about 4 years into the journey. I could look up, I have a little spreadsheet of when I bought every prop, because I've spent like somewhere in the ballpark of like 50 grand on props now. I buy them and sell them and trade them and stuff. But I actually have a spreadsheet of everything I've ever bought. So it is documented somewhere. It's kind of fun to guess. I'd probably say around 2013 when I bought my first set of 3-poi. Immediately hooked on juggling them. Immediately hooked on Superman hybrids. And yeah, pretty much since I picked up 3, that has been my main focus.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And you definitely are quite the 3-poi connoisseur in a lot of ways. And, you definitely, I mean, it's fair to say that you value 3-poi a little bit higher than 2 in some regard. Am I correct there?
What a tough question to answer. Yeah, I would say for myself, yeah, but for others, no. Like last night, there were some people asking me, this was at Jaja at the jam. They're like, hey, how do I get started in 3-poi? I was like, you first must love 2-poi and know how to dance with that and enjoy 2-poi one hand. It's just 2. And
right.
Then talk to me after you can really get into a flow state just using one hand with 2. Because I actually don't recommend 3-poi to most people. It's kind of like it's like playing a weird instrument, like the oboe or something. Like just play the clarinet or the flute or something a little more intuitive. It is a man for people who love to grind and grind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you said that about, you have to first love 2-poi for sure. I wouldn't recommend necessarily 3-poi for somebody that's brand new either. Not because I don't want them to do it. Joey got into 3-poi almost immediately, but he's obviously I have spent a lot of time with him, and I was coaching him, and he was my protege, and I was definitely walking him through the steps, and he eventually did want to get into 2-poi one hand pretty quickly. And then, like I said, got involved in 3-poi pretty quickly. But I think it's so important to have a really good 2-poi base and to do it for quite a while and to have some really good fundamentals with 2-poi before picking up a third. I think maybe some folks, what's funny, on this note, Nate Allen is a really good example of this because we talked about it on our episode. I believe Nate was our 4th episode that we did. And Nate was one of the guys that I got into 3-poi with because I found out that he lived in Utah, and was really excited to hear that because he had some really great 3-poi, and I had not even started 3-poi at all back then. I didn't even know any actual 2-poi one hand tricks back then. I was like 2000. Yeah, I was like 2019, so I was like almost creeping up on 5 years ago. But anyways, Nate, when I was talking to him about this, I was like, man, it's been a while since I've seen any 3-poi from you. And I asked him why, and he said, well, I think I got into 3-poi a little bit too quickly, and I got to a place where I was like, well, I don't really know how to do that necessarily. And he kind of got to a place of stagnation and to where he didn't really know where to go. And at that point, he's like, I am going to go back to 2 and learn a lot more with 2. And that way I can try to apply and incorporate a lot of the concepts that I'll learn into 3. So I think there's definitely something to be said for being very proficient and knowing quite a bit with 2-poi. That way you can apply a lot of the concepts that you've learned over time and use them in your 3-poi. I think that's why I picked it up so quickly, is because I had spun 2-poi for like 12 years before I picked up a third.
Yeah, Nate's perspective is valuable to me. He's such a calm guy, and his tutorials and his spotlight on YouTube and hanging with him, I learned he represents kind of the more zen side of poi, where I'm the kind of more like wacky side. So he represents like I think I would be yin energy, the white side of the yin yang, and he would be yang energy. I think the yin is the sort of like intense one, and he's the calm one. So his perspective is valuable. I would actually like to talk to him about that. Like, would it be hybrids? Would it be switchbacks? Would it be drilling juggling patterns with just 2 of them? Like, which specific frameworks would you go back to?
Yeah, I think he's very hybrid oriented. And what a well-spoken guy. Shout out to Nate Allen, man. I love that guy. Very, very kind individual. So much to say about poi and life in general. If you guys are curious, while we're on the topic of Nate, like I said, 4th episode, my episode with Nate was awesome. So go check it out if you're curious to know more about him.
Yeah, and stick around to the end because he talks about again the balance of things, like his political involvement was, I think it was, I can't remember exactly, correct me if I'm wrong, it had to do with like voter registration. It's an example of a guy who is well balanced. He's really emotionally intelligent and balanced, but he does have his like political views. And so he's someone who is actually working on it instead of just blogging about it or venting about it. He's like actively trying to get people, I think voting.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Nate. So back on the subject of 3-poi, you said you started juggling almost immediately. What's the first pattern that you wanted? Yeah. What's the first like juggling pattern with poi that you wanted to learn or that you did learn? And what do you think like struck you about it?
Bro, we're already going to diverge here. So it was the synced no beat cascade, because as you'll see from one of the top 5 videos I sent you, Willow Solo was a very influential poi spinner for me and poi juggler for me. So he has a tutorial about no beats and the cascade form, and I wanted to learn that right away. But I realized that's actually probably like pattern number 10 compared to several others. So that was the one that really got me into it. You know, it might have been him, Keith Marshall, Cass Smythe. Certainly there'd be a couple others, and I can't put my finger on it, but I'll credit Willow Solo because he put out the YouTube tutorial.
Yep.
And that's where I wanted to go first. I liked that Zen state, him looking up and then being synchronized and the amount of time you had in the air. And then once I became aware of the asynchronous no beat cascade, I became obsessed. And that's what my new act is the asynchronous. For years I did the synced, and now I'm getting really into the async. Well,
Troy, we for some backstory, you wanted my help teaching a class, or just, you know, maybe not necessarily. You wanted me to be involved, right? You wanted me to be involved in a class that you were teaching on no beat cascade at Southwest Flow Fest about 2 years ago. And you had made the remark that you thought that async was easier than just the standard no beat cascade. And myself, and I can't remember who else was there. Maybe it was Lucas Knotts. And we were like, Troy, I really don't think it's easier, bro. Like, I really don't think it's that much easier, because the tosses are higher and then the timing feels weird. But maybe I can understand for you because it was the first pattern that you had learned. But a lot of people don't feel that way, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's like a West Coast influence, because within the last 24 hours, I had the same conversation with Willow, and he was showing me variations of it. And then he's like, try to do any of these variations with the async. And we were trying to squeeze it in and we couldn't do it. So I think it's a West Coast thing. For me, the higher toss makes it a little bit easier, and then there's also an extra beat in the sync. You have an extra beat between each toss, which is just time to compensate for lack of form. Now, if you go to do it with clubs or something, then it totally depends on the prop, right? Like clubs and sticks, async. Poi, sync. And for those who don't know, that's your hands are going like this for the synced, and then this is async, if that makes sense. Yeah, you can also throw an overturn. It's called the overturn cascade. And so for people who don't quite yet know like the subtle release of a no beat, overturns, some people even learn that first, which is even weirder than me. So I think it's a West Coast thing, even though I was in Florida when I picked that up. Man,
it was by a video by somebody that was on the West Coast. So that makes sense. Yeah, and it's so funny. For those of you who don't know, the first juggling pattern I learned was, with poi at least, was half shower, which is, you still don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. It just clicked immediately. I found a half shower, just stumbled across it, and it was just straight away. I was like, oh, this is the first juggling pattern I can do with poi. So
you struck gold, and you're like, I heard this stuff's valuable.
Yeah, and then right after that, I'd say I learned the next pattern that I learned was the pendulum cascade, which was just I don't know if that's even the right term for it. Oh my goodness.
Are you saying you learned a wall plane pattern before the pendulum cascade?
Yeah.
Wow, that is like, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, and maybe it's wild. Maybe it's the 2-poi framework that I had for so long, because I learned no beats pretty early on. I learned no beats with 2-poi probably like 2013 maybe is when I really started getting into no beats in Salt Lake City, which again, I got great influence down there. But yeah, I was pretty familiar with no beats, more so than I was juggling the full turn tosses so much. So maybe that had something to contribute to it.
Just butter right out of the gate, dude. That's a really interesting journey, because I, like, in my journals, I've always looked at the no beat cascade as like God, this sounds so pathetic, like a 3-year pattern. I find myself to be pretty average. Not compared to like younger generations. I'm probably slow compared to Bo. I'm sure he learned it in a week or whatever. I was floored that you didn't learn the pendulum cascade first, because it took me several weeks. God, this is so long ago. With 2-poi, my goal was to get 100 tosses with 2-poi, just in a 1/2 time, throwing pendulums from left to right and right to left. And then I'm dumb, because when I went to learn it with 3-poi, I kept doing a thumb side release, which kept hitting me in the face, and the poi would hit each other in the air. And I'm like, man, these guys got to be really good to make this happen. I went back and watched the tutorial, and the first thing he says is, release with your pinky side. And so for 2 or 3 weeks, I was doing it wrong. And that's just the value. When people say I can't learn from tutorials, I'm like, I prefer not to learn from tutorials, but some of the just verbiage is very straightforward. Like, I have told people, hey, you got to release the pinky one first and then do an additional beat with the thumb side. And they're like, oh, like, that's why you watch tutorials, because some of the things are just logistical.
Right.
And so, yeah, but I learned the pendulum cascade and played with that for a long time. And then I started playing with double rotations, maybe chops, or some of the more club type.
Yeah, that's something that you definitely have gotten a lot from. As much as I shit talk, I don't mean to shit talk. I'm really not. Okay, but like, I've been scarred.
Yeah, it's friendly. I get it.
I have been scarred by some of my biggest poi inspirations leaving poi behind and going on to bigger and brighter things, aka club juggling. Okay, club juggling is awesome.
Marvin.
It's fucking dope. Okay, club juggling's awesome. It's sweet, but I was very sad, and I'm still a little bit sad to lose my buddies to club juggling. And obviously you do whatever you want to do, right? So I'm never gonna like, shit talk somebody for their decisions to do X, Y, and Z. Like, they're, of course, Marvin and Wyatt are both incredible club jugglers now, and it's awesome to see where they're at with club juggling, and they're just revered jugglers now. So it's awesome, right? But yeah, a part of me is selfishly like, damn, dude, we really lost them. We really lost them, because both of them were just so great in their own right. And I've talked about Wyatt so much on this podcast, but he's so underrated. He's so underrated in the poi like world, because not a lot of people really truly understand how ahead of the game he was back then. And I would love to see where he's at with where he would be with poi juggling now if he had stuck with poi juggling. But I get it. I do get it.
Oh man, I'd be curious on that one as well, because his partner poi would be, like Duchamp and soy sauce and seasoned salt. What's his partner's name?
Kristen.
He'd be at Ryan and Kristen's level for sure.
Yeah, they're incredible. Shout out to them. So I guess we're kind of already on the topic. We might as well dive into it. We, over the years of our friendship, we've discovered that we kind of vary in many different ways as far as like training, prop usages, approach to poi and juggling in general. What do you think are some of the main differences between the ways that we approach what we do, and why do you think those are different?
Oh yeah, so for poi internal, there's going to be a lot of very subtle differences. People on the outside will say, you guys are both poi jugglers who go to a location to practice. What do these details really matter? So the reason these matter is because this is a podcast for poi spinners, so we want to identify all the decisions a poi spinner can make, right? So we're not even talking about club juggling anymore. Now we're talking about 3-poi. The first difference, and I brainstormed these, and I think I'll just curate them down to the best ones. No, I train at a gym, and you do not like to train at a gym, but you're far better than me, just in terms of like raw patterns that you have. So like, just
Debatable.
Because I go there doesn't mean I'm right. And then also just because you're better doesn't mean you're right. Your listeners are going to say, is it worth $45 a month to go to a gym where the conditions are perfect? Well, actually, let me just share my health. Okay, so the reason I go to the gym and the reason I flow in general is not just because I want to get good at poi. The gym is next to the grocery store. The conditions are perfect. It gets me out of the house. There's a sauna. There's weights there. There's yoga mats. My dog's not there, so he's not going to bark and distract me. I don't have the best cell service in there, so I'm not scrolling the gram. I don't get distracted by video games there. It's very close to my house. Paying for the gym membership, it just gets me out of the house, right? And so when I leave my house, I usually try to at least always do one other chore or task. So when I go there, and again, it's only 5 minutes away, but I also go to the grocery store or Goodwill or the bike store and pick up my bike and stuff. So I find that we have different mentalities there. I am in my own little world when I'm there, but people are still watching. I'm in a little fishbowl. It's the workout room, and then right on the end is the racquetball room where I go. And now I go there with Kelby. And more now that she's in there, of course, people are like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" But when it was just
of course,
string nerd in there, people are probably just wondering, what's going on in there. And so sometimes people would ask, sometimes they would come say, "Dude, what are you doing?" But yeah, they're watching. For the most part, they don't really care.
Okay, so I think it's important to because we did speak about this earlier in the week, and I think if I could not care about having people watch me juggle or watch me train, the gym would be great. I cannot do it. I've tried so many times to get over I don't know what you would even classify this feeling as, but it's a feeling basically of if there's somebody watching me that doesn't know what I'm doing, I have like a weird thing about me where I want to do something to impress them. And it's this weird thing about me that I'm like, I'll do something that I know that I can do already, but that's not what I need to be doing. And it takes me off track, and I need to be drilling the things that I can't do. I need to be dropping my poi. I need to be working on the things that I still need practice on. And I think that when I'm in locations such as a public location, even a park, right? Let alone a gym, which is just like even more scrutiny, mental scrutiny for me. I can't get over that feeling. And I've tried a lot to work on the mental aspect of juggling and working on a pattern specifically that I cannot do in public, which is just a weird mental block. So I find that when I am completely isolated at a location such as a private studio or a private area where I can juggle and not have any distractions, not have anybody look at me, and I just need to be completely isolated. So I think if I could have that mindset, I think being in the gym would be fantastic, but I don't think it's good for me, man. I really don't.
I have that same thing where I want to show my best tricks to people who don't know what it is. And so usually about 90% of the time I'm drilling and I face away from like the rest of the gym. I face sort of towards the side of the racquetball room. And then once I get stuck, like I'm not running as many reps of the drill, I'm like, okay, time to do the shit I'm good at. And then I'll just like slay for a song.
Isn't it so dumb though? Isn't it so dumb? Like who gives a fuck about what some random dude in the gym thinks of? I don't care. It's such an ego thing, but I can't get over it. Like, I don't know I know it's dumb, but I just can't get over it. I don't know what it is.
That's where I just went there and did what I was good at. And after I got that out of my system, then I was like, okay, time to drill. It's just so rainy. I don't have high ceilings. And I need something that's close to my house. And the gym is like not even 5 minutes away.
That's fair. So location's one thing, right? So what else do you think? Because I know we have a couple different things to get through on that specific topic.
In terms of like free poi drilling, so time frame, I got about a 2 to 5 minute warm up where I think you warm up for about an hour. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the day. Sometimes I like to warm up with 2 poi, and it really depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I want to warm up with 2 poi, and then I feel like immediately my juggling is going to be better because I'm already in the mood of tossing, and then I'll get into poi juggling, and it's way better. But if I start off with poi juggling immediately, sometimes I feel so sloppy and I need to warm up with 2. But it really depends on how long my warm up is. Based on how I'm feeling. But if I'm feeling great, nowadays I want to get right into poi juggling, and I want to immediately get into the patterns that I need to work on and be specific, which is something that I took away from ᴂᴇᴜ in his interview. Just going to plug it really quickly. If you haven't seen the interview on ᴂᴇᴜ, please go watch it. It's actually very insightful, and I think he has so many important things to say. The biggest thing that I took away from that interview was being specific about your training. And so, as much as we want to do the things like poi, for example, you want to have fun with it, and it's something that takes us away from the bullshit, and you want to be able to free flow and have time to reward yourself almost, and like do the things that you want to do. But also, if you want to become better and you want to be a better poi juggler, you have to do the things that you don't want to do. You have to be frustrated, almost like this is again, my opinion. I have to make myself frustrated by things that I can't do. I have to push myself. I have to make myself uncomfortable. So I've been trying to get to that stage of my training quicker, but my sessions are definitely longer. My sessions are definitely longer than they typically would have been in the past. And I'm trying to make it a point to have long sessions that are productive, where I have very little breaks. I don't like to have distractions. And when you talked about the cell service thing, I put my phone in do not disturb, bro. Like, I put my phone over here. I play some music. That's it. I cannot look at my phone even for a couple hours. Otherwise, I find myself getting so distracted, and I feel like it's really detrimental to your progress. So I think time period in which we're juggling is most likely a little bit different from what I have discussed with you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say my time period's a little bit shorter. I think I may have a shorter attention span. So I really pack it in. I'm like, for example, Seb's mess or half shower, warm-ups, a couple minutes with 2 poi. And honestly, ball juggling's been helping a lot lately. In the past, it was like balls and clubs and poi and sticks in the same session. Now it's just poi. My poi are longer than the clubs, and I'm obsessed, right? So I do put in an hour or 2 sessions. Lately, I've been jamming with Kelby in the racquetball room with me. So, and she loves to just jam by herself and film and like grind hoop juggling. So we like both flow for 20 minutes to our own headphones, and we'll actually each leave our headphones in, and then we'll just do passing. Like we're trying to get 100 what are called like ultimates, which is a passing pattern. And so it's a flow state with your partner, which is like, I feel as though that's my next step. A theme of like what we both agree on is you need 2 poi to get from A to B, and then you need 3 poi to get from B to C. But then to get from C to D and D to E, etc., like it could involve other props or other people. It could involve, paying for bow jugglers Patreon and getting individualized feedback on your mistakes. It could involve like purchasing a better camera that can shoot in 120 frames a second, so you can actually study, faster than the eye can see what's going wrong. I invested in a large mirror when I lived in Florida, and I watched myself in a mirror for many, many years with every prop. And I have all sorts of tripods and little suction cups to hold my phone up, so anywhere I am, I can go and film myself and watch it. I don't post it, but I do watch it. I watch it from every angle. I watch it in slow motion. I even have watched like time lapses to see if my posture changed over the course of it. And when you talk about like practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. You do have to kind of invest some money and better equipment to create perfect practice. Patreon, a gym membership. At any given point, you should have like at least 2 sets of 3 poi, a short set and a long set. You should have juggling balls with you. You should. I don't know if you need a camera or not, but I invest a lot into my practice because I believe it's a bit cheaper than therapy, So I invest a lot into it to maximize it, and I am
typical flow artist.
I think it's also a West Coast influence. Is like Seb's mess has my mind. I am obsessed with Seb's mess, and I finally cleared like around 40 catches this week. So this has been a really big week for me with 3 poi.
Good
I actually
stuff, man.
surpassed. Like I was talking to Willow last night. He's like, "Oh, dude, good for you. Like I can't even do that many." And I was like, "Wow, I never thought I would." Even in just one pattern, surpass the people who taught me. Where are you at with Sebs? I think you said a couple dozen.
Yeah, dude, on a great run, maybe. And those are not really super clean catches anyways. I want to say like
or so, or
I mean the best runs that I've done probably around there. But
damn, dude, I thought you had it pretty much on lock at this point.
No, I don't.
Because you have forward. You have like all these different poi patterns that I think are harder than Sebs.
I disagree. I think in terms, obviously we're gonna have differing opinions. I mean, like I think half shower is really easy, right? So like, it's I think half shower is way easier than Sebs.
I can do it with balls, clubs, and sticks. So what's going on with poi?
I don't know, but I think I'm around clean catches. I think I can definitely get like 12 on a semi-decent run.
Dude, 12 is like a magnetic number. Like everyone gets stuck at 12 for like I was there for like probably a year or more.
Yeah.
12.
Yeah, it's a pattern that will bow jugglers just fucking laughing at us. But yeah, it's a really tough pattern. It's a really tough pattern. And some of the harder patterns that we're definitely grinding on. And this is something that I've been curious to bring up on this episode is when I take any extended break or even just a couple days of break, like 3 to 4 or 5 days, I come back and I'm like, wow, I immediately feel less confident in the pattern. It is terrible. You have to be so consistent in like practice is ridiculously important. As probably the most important thing. Even if you're just doing an hour a day, I feel like an hour a day is way better than doing 2 hours here, split a couple days, 2 hours here. Like even if the total amount of hours are the same, if you break it up very hugely and you have a massive session and then you wait a couple days and have another massive session, I don't think is beneficial in between just splitting up the hours and having a couple hours here, a couple hours here, a couple hours here, and just having more consistency. I think that's way better for learning.
I would like to add to that on a more micro level. Lately, in order to progress, like I used to be really hype, but now I'm much more calm, right? So lately what I do is I actually take like a minute break in between each attempt and I drink water and I meditate and I sit on a yoga mat and I just do like neck rolls. And I find a muscle group to stretch for a count of 10 or 30 or whatever. And then I'm like really intentional. And I try to use it like when the music changes, that's when I'll start the pattern. And I realized I was not getting enough oxygen to my brain to do these complex patterns. Have you ever tried to like you can dunk, when you're fresh, or you can touch the rim, but you can't touch the rim when you're like winded. It's kind of like that. Like Sebs is using all my focus and like physical ability. So I need to like be fully oxygenated. Reason I know these breathing techniques is I used to be a diver. I used to dive through caves when I lived in Florida. And so for probably like 4 years, I trained like breathing exercises. I just never did it with poi because I was like, oh, I'm not out of breath. But it's like, you're not out of breath, but there's a lot of carbon dioxide in your blood. And also like in order to do Sebs in these weird body positions, I'm like holding my breath at weird points. And I have to take. Yeah, so that my newest, again, A to B, different strategy. B to C, totally different strategy. C to D, breathing strategies are how I've leveled up. But what sucks is, like, for some of my poi juggling patterns, I want to do them as a finale for my stage act, but I'm always out of breath at the end. So I'm like, do I do it at the beginning when when my muscles aren't as warm, but the poi are just lit on fire, so they're heavy and weird? So I'm like, crap, this is a really weird puzzle to figure out. When do I put the hardest 3-poi juggling tricks? Some would say in the middle, but I think I'm going to do them both at, like, I might try just no beat cascade at the beginning, and then I might do it again at the end, and I'll like throw in Sebs if it's going well. I don't know. I'm still figuring out how these new tricks factor into my act.
I would say the most difficult things you should do in the middle. That's I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. So we'll say time training, just to summarize here, we've said that location is one thing, warm up / the actual overall length of the session. In what other ways do you think we differ, and what do you think? Like, maybe not even just us, but like other people. Where do you think there's like a crossroads in
grips?
Poi juggling?
I wish I had if I was to grab my poi, I would say something like, I use, I think, 5 different grips, and there's one that I use that you don't want to use. That was one way that we differ. You use like the grip where the knobs are further apart, and then you're just holding onto a tether.
Yes.
And then I use a grip where you're just holding onto each knob. I never say there's a right or a wrong grip. I say learn all of them, just like skateboarding. Learn nollie, learn fakie, fuck switch. You can learn switch if you want, but I just do fakie. And then, to be honest, I never learned nollie really either. But like, learn all of them, and you never know. Because like doing a tricks on a snowboard, I could do a switch 9 on a snowboard. But like hitting the jump switch and then landing regular is easy. So same with poi. You like do a toss with a weird ass grip, but then once it's in the air, you can just catch it however you want. So like Goddard grip, some dude at a festival in Florida taught me that. It was a game changer. And then the grip you showed me, I still haven't integrated, but I like have played with it a lot. Kevin Axtell's class on club manipulation grips, mind-blowingly good. The best flow arts class I've ever taken, the most influential class I've ever taken.
Kevin's episode we just barely did. That was
you already did it?
Truly my favorite. If I had to pick an absolute favorite, it's hard because I always am. The next episode I record, I'm like, that's my favorite episode. Like, seriously, Kevin, dude, shout out to Kevin. His episode was so fucking fun, dude. It comes out this weekend. I'm incredibly excited for you to see it. And by the time this episode's released, it's already up here. So go watch it. Kevin is such a fucking awesome dude. Like, please go watch it. It was great.
Yeah. He's never really sucked into any drama. He's a really good performer. He's a really good teacher. He's very well spoken. He's in the more artistic aspect of it as well. His tech has influenced, it's like, let's say you taught 100 people, right? You did not influence 100 people. You influenced like 1,000 people, because each of those 100 probably went on to teach some of their friends. He's influenced maybe more club jugglers and poi spinners in the flow scene than like Drex or Wyatt or Johnny or the next, like 3 object manipulators. So yeah, shout out to Kevin. He influenced me greatly at my first flow festival, Flame, back in Atlanta when I lived in Florida.
Sweet.
His philosophy on grips was, I was like, yo, this got a name for it. He's got muscle memory for it. He gave individualized feedback for each person to make sure they knew it. Hob grip, dob grip, and knob grip. I just love the sound of that.
So I will concede to you in saying that I know that a weakness of mine is that I do not use multiple grips. The only grip that I use is just the one and only grip. I don't like any of the other grips. They don't feel good. And I feel like I have the most amount of control with my grip, bar none. And maybe it's a comfortability thing. I don't know, but I find ways to make it work. And I find that I will get into grips. I'll get into my said grip, and I'll find so many different ways to get into it and exit out of it. And I think it's works for me. But I think that, if I would be able to get into other grips, maybe I would find some more possibilities and some more things that would help me out. So I'll like concede to you there.
Fucking jabroni pushing Mongo, but then also like tray flipping a 10 stair. Like, I don't know if you guys skate. If you know what pushing Mongo is.
Joey does. Joey does.
To me, it's like the equivalent of pushing Mongo, but I can't say shit because you're so good. Right? I'm like right before you do the thing, everyone's like, look at this fucking nerd. And then you like do the tray flip down the 10 stair, and everyone's like,
jeez.
Yo, what? Like, I wasn't talking shit. Were you talking shit? But, yeah.
Totally. All right, let's get into some of your favorite YouTube videos that you sent me. I always ask for.
They're all 3 point.
Are they really?
Oh yeah.
Of course. So classic. Obviously, you guys. We already know. Hopefully, you know what this video is.
Skip to the 3 point part.
We already know.
Let's go.
We know how influential this video was, and specifically how influential Jonathan Alvarez was on the 3 poi world and the poi world as a whole. What an incredible individual. What do you have to say about this video, and why do you think it struck you so deeply?
Well, it always brings me to tears because it looks like he's sort of going to come to tears. Like it's a very emotional thing. And watching his journey from spinning 2-poi, going into 3, and becoming a performer, despite some glaring like challenges he may have as like a bigger fella, he stepped into his confidence and overcame the traditional performer mold. And he definitely helped flow toys like reach their potential, with gunslingers and showing off the different modes and filming with them. It's kind of the whole package deal. Like Jonathan Alvarez in general has always made me happy, but specifically to it, he has tricks and hybrids that no one else does. In fact, I'm not even quite sure how he does some of the 3-poi. I guess I would call them like stalls, like a tri-stall. I'll have to see him again in a second. It's almost like he treats this little 2-poi section as like a shoulder warm-up. And then he's like, okay, now I'm ready for the 3-poi section. But yeah, the video, whatever frame rate it was shot in, like left just beautiful tracers. His color selection shows that he has kind of like a mild energy. A lot of people go with the strobe. He went with like lantern and red, which use very little battery, not super bright. There's no strobes. He just feels like a gentleman who loves the art and loves
immensely.
Immensely.
And don't you love these like early videos where the quality of the video actually wasn't that great because you have tracers and we can actually see the patterns a little bit better. Like some of the earlier like glow stringing videos that we saw, that you can just see the frame rate is like abysmal, but it works out so well for poi spinning. Maybe this is like ridiculous of me to say, but I would love to shoot on like a less frame, like a bad camera, like for that reason almost.
Oh, my good cameras, I can adjust the frame rate. I can drop it down, and I can also do it in post too.
And it looks like the same thing that we're talking about here, like frame rate.
I would just use the app called Trails. Drex has a tutorial on how to use that plugin.
Ooh, okay.
To get trails and still have your body look really crisp.
Okay, all right. I won't be ridiculous and get a shitty camera.
Dude, I love 3-poi caps so much. And
see this pattern right here. That pattern right there, what was awesome about that one, if you want to just back it up a little bit, actually, if you would just back it up a little bit so we can catch that pattern one more time. Just a little bit.
Yeah,
right there. Okay. Right here. Ready?
It's like Mercedes with his 2.1 hand, and then
it was so good. It was so good. I'm actually jealous because he does not do 2.1 hand. Some people say Mercedes versus extension, I just called it triquetra, right? Yeah. So 2.1 hand triquetra versus a 3 pedal on the other hand. He does both of his pedals with the apex facing upwards. When I do my 2.1 hand triquetra, I have the apex facing downwards, and in my other hand, I have the apex facing upwards. And at this point in my journey, I probably will never learn. I don't really have a whole lot of drive to learn the 2.1 hand triquetra with the apex facing upwards. I'm so far into it, I don't really have any drive, any motivation to learn it. But the way that specifically that pattern came out was incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he nailed it. That video influenced me to have the more playful hybrid style. And then during the climax of the show would have been the really clean pattern. Now this video is, of course, ᴰᴜ. Shout out, another great Patreon and tutorial creator and performer and musician, for those of you who don't know.
What a goat.
You know, this is a very old video, and I really don't see him like spinning like this anymore. Most of his stuff seems more performative, so this was a very playful, but his playful style is very performative. And some of these 1.5s here,
oh, they were so good.
You know, he's the only one who was doing it at the time, or still even does it. Basically, his coup d'etat, am I saying that right? He does 2.1 hand triquetras and just keeps changing plane with them. Like, he just keeps it going behind him, in front of him, side to side. I was like, I still haven't even yeah, and then he does the butterfly in front of him split time and behind him split time, which I find really difficult. I've never figured that out.
You know, and I'm gonna just kind of go off topic a little bit here, but I talked to Drex at one point, and he said that he didn't really have a huge love for 3-poi, which is kind of funny because his little symbol is 3-poi on any of his things. Kind of funny, right? But I'm sorry, but he said the reason that he doesn't really love 3-poi is because it's too asymmetric. He doesn't like how asymmetric 3-poi is, but somebody like Vojta and the way, well, juggling too, but the way that he's doing his 3-poi patterns and the way that he spins, and has been a huge motivation in the way that I approach 3-poi, is I want it to have symmetry. I want it to look like a complete package, and I want it to have the 3-poi symmetry that looks great while we're doing it. I don't want to just have 2-poi dominated in one hand only, and on only one side of my body. Like, oh, my right side is only 2-poi, my left side is only 1-poi. I don't think that looks great, and I don't think it's optimal aesthetically, but Vojta does an amazing job of really making it look very aesthetic and very symmetric. Yeah, very balanced. That's, good, great word.
If you want to nerd out during your reads, you should keep 120 degrees in between each angle. I don't know if you noticed, but the 2-poi are actually connected in the middle. That's a meteor.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah. If you watch him, he does a staff trick.
Oh,
he just does like an infinite. He's just like doing a finger swap. I didn't notice that. I watched this video 5 times before I noticed that.
So
and I messaged him about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." Like he didn't even remember. He's like, "Oh yeah, they are."
I see it
right there. You can tell. Yeah.
Wow, I never. You know what? And what's crazy about Vojta is he actually can do so many switches, like grip switches and hand switches between 2-poi one hand. And it was probably older, so he maybe was not as comfortable with that. But yeah, man, shout out to Vojta. His episode, one of my favorites. Go check it out. That guy is an incredible individual and just a huge role model for myself, and one of my top 3 biggest inspirations in the poi world for sure. So shout out to Vojta. The next video that we have to get into is a truly special video, and what an incredible project by the GOAT of poi juggling.
Opening trick, synchronized cascade. Dun dun.
Yeah, what a GOAT. Oh my god, dude. You know how fucked up that trick is? The half shower with one going behind his back? How do you even have, like, the consistency in his catches behind the back is ridiculous.
Dude, he has like AI.
No, seriously, he is so far above any poi juggler in the world right now. It's criminal. It's actually criminal.
It's wonky, yeah. And he's a really down-to-earth guy. Like, he'll send me messages like showing me how to do something better, which I find infinitely valuable. I'll probably sub to his Patreon, for forever. Just once. Yeah. It's about once a month now. I'm just like, hey, can you help me with this? Because his tutorials are good enough on their own.
They're so good.
Dude, like, yeah, and the personalized feedback is so valuable. So I was gonna end the episode with a call to action. If you're into 3-poi, like, spend the 20 a month. Because the personalized feedback, it should be 20 a message. Like,
well, you can get just on that note, you can Bo's Patreon. You can actually get for what, dude? You can get access to like 100 plus videos for like $2 a month.
Yeah, he has that tier, but I don't know if you can ask for as much feedback. For me, like, it's all about the feedback, because the tutorials at first, like, 30% of the process, and then watching them again is the other 30%. And then
I think I'm subbed to like 5 right now. So shout out to Bo. He's just been, and you know what? I've left it, and there's been plenty of months where I didn't necessarily even use his Patreon, but I am so happy to support him. And, just I have infinite respect for what he's doing with poi and the boundaries that he's pushing. And like I said, it's absolutely criminal how far above he is with poi juggling, far from anybody else. And what I think is so incredible about Bo is he is highly regarded in the juggling world, not just the poi world, but he is one of the best jugglers straight up. Not even just poi jugglers, just jugglers all around in the world. What an exceptional human being. This year. It's what a huge accomplishment for Bo. And this video is absolutely incredible. So go watch the full thing. Show Bo some support. We love Bo. He's a huge friend of the channel. We also interviewed him, like I said earlier. Tons of great insights and advice to people. Now, the next one, this is a little bittersweet nowadays, folks. A little bittersweet nowadays, all right? Because of some changes in... I'm just going to be as respectful as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Right? Some changes in the public... I don't even know how I want to say it. Public representation of Chris. But we are going to handle this video objectively, and we're going to enjoy this video regardless of the current perception of Chris. This video is one of the best poi performances, in my opinion, of all time. I still watch this video probably once a month to this day, and he is quite a visionary in many ways with poi juggling and three poi in general. What do you think you love so much about this video?
The ability to, as far as I remember, he doesn't drop at all. And if I was to even just try to flow it out and run these patterns, I think I would drop pretty much every 30 seconds. So the ability to pull it off without dropping is pretty impressive.
Live. To be able to do it live.
Yeah, the creativity is impressive. He uses the whole stage. He's not even breathing hard. His mouth never hangs open. He looks like a cool guy, as we say. The creativity is cool. The tech is there. The juggling's there. I mean, I would say that my main part is like creativity. He invented a lot of this.
He did.
The contact. I know you love contact rolls. Like
I do.
Creativity with contact is second to none at this point.
Is.
Now there are spinners who have probably like surpassed this, but as far as I know, is when this was for about 5 years, this was the top of the peak of creativity.
I mean,
I don't learn some of this stuff, but I love to watch it because I'm like, it's accessible. You know, nothing's too crazy. It's all a series of like tricks that you could learn if you broke them down. But to do them all in a row is just next level. I mean,
the consistency.
I think he might have I think I asked him about this one time. Don't quote me, but I think he I don't want to say improv'd it, but this was not like hard choreography. I'm pretty sure he was just going through all his tricks in the order that he
really
something like that. Like, because it's one of those songs where it doesn't have like hard breaks every 8 count.
Really,
that's the white poi on a background makes it really easy to follow along.
Absolutely,
it's filmed in horizontal. I think it probably was at the Flow Show in San Francisco. I don't really know where it was. But...
It was. And look at those tethers being loose as hell, bro. What are you doing? It's crazy that he was doing this shit with loose tethers. Like, how?
Short poi, too. Short, loose tethers with 100mm heads, I think.
I had a conversation with Chris a couple years ago at in Oregon, and he was... we were talking about short poi versus long poi, and he's like, dude, short poi really isn't even that easier necessarily, and long poi just looks better, and I 100% agree.
Maybe some of these tricks would be impossible with longer poi. I don't know.
Well, Bo's proof of that, because Bo has a long poi, and he just said that he... So what was really interesting about a conversation I had with Bo was that he was saying long poi almost makes some things easier based on how high you're tossing the poi and what you're doing with the poi, which I 100% agree with when I really think about it. But because it's easier to to do a really high no beat with a long poi versus a short poi, which I understand that now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But seriously, one of the most incredible poi juggling routines that's ever been done. I'm sure that Bo in his early days...
Can't do that with long poi. Those would hit the ground. See how he's kneeling? I tried that yesterday. They hit the ground. True.
But I'm sure Bo was quite inspired by this video in his early days as well. And it really goes to show that the work that he was doing was quite incredible and quite revolutionary for the time period. When this video came out, Chris was the best poi juggler in the world, straight up. And I still think that he's most likely the best poi, or the second best poi juggler in the world. Obviously Bo has taken the cake, rightfully so at this point. But it's I don't really want to get into the tarnished legacy so much. Because I do just as an artist, strictly as an artist, I have so much respect for Chris, man. I have so much respect for this guy, and wishing him the best. I hope he is able to come in a brighter light to the poi world, and hopefully is able to get some stability in his life. I always am wishing Chris the best. As many mistakes as he's publicly made. Like I said, I don't want to really get into all that shit right now, but just strictly as an artist, man, goddamn, Chris is one of the best of all time. For sure, man. So the next video we have is by Willow. We had briefly talked about this video earlier. Willow Solo. Shout out to Willow. Huge inspiration of mine as well.
This shot right here
was released in 2014, and look at those tethers. Those tethers were quite loose. He's hugging some trees here.
The rubbing of the pine needles on his hand.
Yeah.
And then picking up that shot right there is like seared into my mind. He's got a big beard right now, so he was like looking like a wizard last night. And this video just influenced me because he's so calm, and I'm such a. Right now I'm being pretty calm, but overall I'm kind of a spastic kind of guy. And his calm demeanor and the breakdown of no beats here made poi a zen thing for me, as opposed to such a intense thing for me.
Right.
Yeah, and the video is just shot so well. It's like
it is very professional.
Yeah, I think he is I think his degree's in physics or something, but he also has the same scientific attention to detail in the cinema of it. We can move on to the next video.
Hey,
shout out to
Willow, if you're watching this, I'm going to if you're down, please. I need to get you on the podcast, man, because we've watched too many of Willow's videos to not have had you on the podcast at this point. So very excited. Hopefully that episode happens soon. I need to get in contact with you. Willow, if you're watching, hit me up, bro. Hit me up.
I believe he coined the term poi nugs too. He has a YouTube video called like poi nugs that is just unbelievably interesting. All these different things you can do with like 2 poi or even 1 poi.
Well, and that's huge too, because Tim Goddard actually uses that term quite a bit. Whenever, real nugs, yeah, that's hella funny. Shout out to Willow, man. Next video that we have. Oh, that's it. Actually, that was 5. Fantastic.
Shout out to if we could have 6, and I was to include a 2 poi, it would probably be Nissi. I think he's Japanese. His like stage act with 2 poi is. You ever seen that one?
I don't think so. You know what? I'm surprised.
Dude.
I'm surprised what episode or what video that you didn't include.
I had to include 1 2 poi. I just because I watched it recently, dude. Yeah, if you could pull up Nissi's stage act, Nissy, dude. Nissy.
Nissi.
He'll like bring you to tears. I believe he's Japanese. Slender fellow, and like it's like a 7-minute 2 poi act, complete with tech and dance and musicality, and the song is not hype. It's like almost like classical music, and you can tell that the crowd, you can tell it's in like an arts center.
Yeah,
it's not.
Pull it up. Joey has it. I think Joey has it right here. And it's a JJF, dude. Yeah, shout out to Japanese, man. If any of the, I know there's a language barrier.
Yeah, just like skip through it a bunch so they can see all the. Yeah, this video is legendary. Yes, 6 minutes.
I know there's a language barrier here in between us and the Japanese spinners and jugglers, but if any of you watch this podcast and you have and you are able to speak any English, like basically, and you think that we could get through an interview, please hit me up. I would absolutely love to feature some Japanese artists on this podcast, because I think Japan is absolutely exploding in so many ways with. Well, he's actually not even living in Japan.
Where's he from? Korea?
No, he is. Oh my goodness, I don't want to. I actually do not know. I know that he's not out of Japan.
Cool.
But anyways, regardless, JJF Bo Juggler has been out of here, out to that event plenty of times, and I think Japan is just absolutely exploding with talented artists, jugglers, flow artists. Go check them out. Find some Japanese poi spinners. They are incredible. So very, very excited to see what comes out of Japan in the next coming years, because they are just so incredibly talented. And I think they have a lot of really good representation right now, and it's only getting better.
Dude, poi will be in the Olympics. They already have hooping in the Olympics. You know,
it's rhythmic gymnastics. Is that right? Is that
Yeah.
what they call it? Yeah, super cool.
I've done some reaction videos on. I have a little YouTube channel called Flow Arts Curator where I react to like the rhythmic gymnastic hoopers. They do stuff that I've never even seen at a flow festival, where they'll do these tosses that are so high, like they can do like 3 backflips on the ground and then catch it on their foot in a headstand.
Holy shit!
Or yeah, their high tosses are like higher than I could like punt a soccer ball.
Wow.
Like their high tosses are so high, like if it was windy out, their hoop would be in a tree. You know what I mean? Like and they're taped hoops, so they're not even like it's just Olympic.
So I want to get to some closing topics here before we close it out. One thing I want to ask you, if you could give yourself some advice, if you were like a little baby Troy just coming up in the world, learning about poi, or another artist that is getting into poi juggling, what advice would you give them or yourself to help you along the way in your early career, or somebody who is trying to improve at juggling right now?
Wow, what a deep question. First of all, like I probably wouldn't change anything about the journey, because besides buying Boogang is for other people. I'm glad that there's people who are really good at it. I bought it and sold it, and maybe wasted a couple hours. That's the one prop that I always just like dunk on Boogang. Maybe don't buy Boogang. I don't know. But then I never would have met Ryan Fish, so I don't know. I probably would say.
Just while you're thinking about that, Troy, I got to point out that one of Bo's first props, and a prop that he is incredible with, is Boogang.
And then like C Boogang or whatever, like the half gang or whatever.
He's so good, dude. He's so good. Shout out to Bo.
I just wanted to like dunk on Boogang for some reason.
No. But you can't though, because literally the best poi juggler in the world loves it, and he's fucking like sponsored by a fucking is it RD Boogang or something?
RX. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, fucking insane, dude.
They just shared his video. Okay, so advice probably. I really think my journey has been pretty organic. It would be maybe to work on passing sooner. Maybe to honestly, like as I've journaled over the years, like flow arts has been a very pure and good journey for me. I haven't had any like major faux pas. I had bicep tendonitis at one point, so I would give myself some tips on like warming up and not doing as many pull-ups while I'm also drilling sebs. I would say, I like retrospect with juggling is so weird because the no beat cascade is easy to me now, right? I guess I would like teach myself how to do it better earlier on, or actually I do have one piece of advice, and it would be I'll keep it general, and then I'll zoom in, and then I'll go back to general. So in general, I would say don't get your expectations so high with people without a contract. I can think of like 3 or 4 instances where not having a contract with someone, whether it was through a sponsorship or collaboration, or we were performing together, or a subcontractor, they just no-showed, or they, awkward, made a bunch of social faux pas in front of me, or got me in trouble. To like when I'm working with people, to just be like, this needs to be contractual. That probably would be a good piece of advice, because there's a company that sponsored me for flow arts, and it was going great, and I totally shot myself in the foot by getting too involved with someone that I wanted to mentor, and they wound up sort of stabbing me in the back in the middle of a collaboration, and I should have just had a contract of what we were going to do. And instead of this like soft agreement of like, hey, I'm going to mentor you, and in exchange you can film me, I should have been like, here's what we're doing. We're not going to get spiritual. We're not going to do all this. We're just going to work on your project. And if I could go back and talk to my like probably 29-year-old self, I'd be like, people who are really emotional are going to find a reason to screw you over and then gaslight you about it and talk about you behind your back to your mutual contact. So just keep it contractual. Stay focused on your journey. Journaling has been really beneficial for that process and in general. So to zoom out, I would say keep journaling, break things down into sections of 5. Like today, my journal that I posted was 5 harsh realities about performing lifestyles. And from what I've understand about influencer and music marketing, like writing good journals about what you learned, and then editing them into good videos and posting them is how you get traction online. more so than like posting 3 minutes of free flow, right? So I probably would say be contractual and use your journals, edit your journals into good videos. And I probably would have, more followers that actually care about me than I do. And thus my tutorials would reach more people. It's been like, moving to Portland has been very up and down, but I almost wish I moved to Portland like a year or two sooner, because I love it out here. And there was a while there where like bodybuilding was getting in the way of flow because I was sore all the time. I actually couldn't, as a teacher, I couldn't write on the whiteboard because like doing too much like bench press and stuff. So I would say just do lower weights. Flow is so sacred to me. Anything that gets in the way of it is toxic, man. I cannot let things get in the way,
In terms of anything that's getting in the way of me focusing on poi, I have to definitely cut out, because poi and juggling is a main focus in my life. Like, that's what I've realized. May sound silly to some people that don't understand it, but I want to make my mark on the poi world, and I want to be able to perform in a lot of places. Not necessarily, I think people have different motivations for performing. One of the motivations I have for performing is, like, when I went and saw Wojta's stage act in Oregon in 2022, about 2 years ago, that legitimately was one of the most inspiring moments for me to push myself with juggling and to continue on. And if I can hopefully give other people that feeling in the same way that I had the feeling, even just through video, of seeing Chris's act, the one that we reviewed, I really would love to do that and to be that person for another person. And aside from that, just having the personal development and the personal goals and achievements of being able to do like a juggling pattern, or like a pattern that I very much love and I'm proud of myself for being able to do. So there's a lot of personal accomplishments and a lot of motivating others and inspiring others to be able to reach a similar level, or to get that level inside themselves that they are happy with and that they can be proud of. So I think
all my advice was like super selfish. Yours was like, I'd be a better community member.
Well, I mean, dude, you know what? We all have different journeys, and we all have different things that, desired outcomes possibly, and we differ in a lot of ways. But I almost think that's what I think creates a dynamic and interesting friendship between us, is we're very different, and you approach poi in a lot of different ways. You approach juggling and performing and life in a lot of different ways. And I think it's beneficial to have people who are surrounded by you that differ on some of these issues, who are still, good people, and you can still have fun with and be friends with, of course, obviously. But it's fun to have friends that are not just like you. It's like good to have people that are very different in those ways. So I think there's something to be said for that. And I appreciate our differences. And I think folks that are just only seeking out friendships that are very similar, or friends that are very, very similar to them, I think you can find a lot of depth and a lot of knowledge and learning about yourself and having friends that are quite different from you.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because the differences we have are like, in the grand scheme of things, they're like, I want my poi to be this long. And they're just like, when like, ideal, you know what I mean? There's such other things that we probably differ on, but who cares about the real topics? Like, we love, you and I love to talk about whatever it may be, a grip or a tether rope, a bit of string, as a poi spinner once told me. What, you think I care about a bit of string? And I was like, well, yeah, I do.
Yeah, but you do. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, dude, it's been a fun episode. We can close it out. Any closing thoughts that you have? Maybe you can close it out with some topics, maybe inspirations that you have in the poi juggling community or poi community at large. Maybe you already got through them. Maybe you want to give any closing remarks.
Yeah,
go ahead and let you close it out, man.
I have this 12-minute rap I'm going to start right now. You ready? I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that, man. The closing remark is a shout out to Bo Juggler. His Patreon's really helped me get to the next level. No matter how good a tutorial is, no matter how good my camera is, no matter how perfect my juggling poi set is, the best thing is to have a mentor who's a little bit better than you, break things down into steps and give you feedback that you can use to get better. So if you're on the fence about purchasing a Patreon, start with bows, look at Voitas, maybe even Drexes. There's tons of resources out there. I've subscribed to all three of those at some point, and they are super helpful. So it's not that expensive, and there's a world of cool poi awaiting for you if you just make that leap and make that investment in yourself.
Absolutely, man. That's an incredibly positive remark to make about supporting ourselves and investing in ourselves. That was adorable. We'll go ahead and close it out, man. Thanks so much. You know where to support Troy and his efforts, and go check out. He has some great content coming up on Instagram and on YouTube, hopefully with Flow Arts Curator. It's been a wonderful episode 27. Let us know what you liked about the episode in the comments below, and we'll go ahead and close it out, man. It's been real. Thank you very much. Peace.